You're listening to the Loi Music Academy podcast, your go-to space for all things lo-fi. Sit back, relax, and let's dive into the world of lo-fi music production.
Hi, and welcome to the Loi Music Academy podcast. I'm Spencer J, your guide through the chilled-out, atmospheric world of lo-fi beats. Today, we're diving deep into two essential effects that help define the warm, nostalgic sound of lo-fi: reverb and delay. Whether you're new to production or just looking to add that extra depth to your tracks, this episode will show you how to use these effects to create atmospheric, textured music. As we've discussed in previous episodes, lo-fi music is all about creating mood and space, making the listener feel like they're in a cosy, intimate room or drifting through a dreamscape. Reverb and delay are the two most powerful tools for shaping that space and atmosphere. In today's episode, we'll explore how to use these effects, from subtle touches to more experimental approaches, so you can take your lo-fi tracks to that next level. First, let's talk about reverb. In lo-fi production, reverb helps create that sense of space and warmth that defines the genre, but using it properly requires balance. You want your track to sound spacious and cosy, not washed out or too distant. When we add a reverb to an instrument, like a piano or a drum sample, we're essentially simulating the sound of the instrument in a physical space, whether it's a small room, a large hall, or even a cavernous environment. In lo-fi, we're often going for something more intimate and warm, like a bedroom or a small recording studio. A good starting point is to use subtle, shorter reverbs. Think room or plate reverb presets. These will add warmth and space without making the elements in your mix sound too distant. You can try adding reverb to your keys, guitar, or even your hi-hats to soften the overall vibe of your track. One tip for beginners and even intermediate producers: always consider EQing your reverb. When you apply reverb, it can clutter your mix, especially in the low and high frequencies. Try rolling off the low end and maybe even a bit of the high end on your reverb to keep your track clean and focused, while still adding that lush, warm space. Another good tip is to use pre-delay to maintain clarity. Pre-delay is the time between the original sound and when the reverb kicks in. By adding just a bit of pre-delay, you allow the original sound, like a snare or a vocal, to punch through before the reverb washes over it. This keeps your track from sounding too muddy. Now, let's move on to delay. Delay is a fantastic effect to create depth and movement and rhythm in your track. Essentially, delay repeats the original sound after a short period, and those echoes can be used creatively to fill up space and add complexity to your arrangement. In lo-fi production, delay is often used subtly. A syncopated delay on your melody or a slight echo on your snare can create that signature off-kilter, laid-back feel. The key is not to overdo it. Too much delay can make your track sound chaotic, which goes against the calm and relaxed nature of lo-fi. One delay technique for lo-fi is the ping-pong delay. This is where the echoes bounce from one side of the stereo field to the other. It can add a nice subtle sense of movement without overpowering the track. Use it sparingly on lead instruments or even vocal chops to keep things interesting. You can also experiment with low fidelity delays, where the repeated sound decays and degrades with each echo. This creates that dreamy, hazy atmosphere that fits perfectly with lo-fi. Plugins like RC20 Retro Color or simple tape emulations can achieve this effect easily, giving your track that worn-out, nostalgic feel. Now that we've covered both reverb and delay on their own, let's talk about how to combine them. One trick is to use delay to create space in your track and then apply a bit of reverb to the delayed signal. This layers the effects, adding depth without muddying up the original sound. For example, if you have a guitar lead with a light delay, send that delayed signal to a reverb bus so the echoes get soaked in reverb. This creates a subtle, dreamy effect that sits perfectly in a lo-fi track without overwhelming the mix. One advanced tip is to automate your reverb and delay throughout your track. Maybe the reverb increases during a breakdown, or the delay gradually fades out as you transition from the chorus to the verse. Automation adds dynamic movement to your track and helps tell a story, keeping the listener engaged from start to finish. As you can see, reverb and delay are more than just effects. They're essential tools for shaping the emotional and spatial feel of your lo-fi tracks. The key to mastering these effects is subtlety. In lo-fi, it's all about setting the mood and drawing listeners into that cosy, nostalgic space. Use these effects to enhance your track, not overpower it. To wrap up, I encourage you to experiment with different reverb and delay settings in your DAW. Find what works for your unique sound, and don't be afraid to break the rules. Sometimes the best lo-fi comes from those happy accidents. That's it for today's episode of the Loi Music Academy podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, or sharing it with fellow music producers who may find it useful. Until next time, keep creating, stay inspired, and remember, it's all about the vibe. Take care and see you in the next episode.
Thanks for tuning in to the Loi Music Academy podcast. If you're ready to start making lo-fi music and want to go even deeper, grab your free guide. Discover the 6 essential steps to create a release-ready lo-fi track from scratch. Whether you're using budget gear in your bedroom or a small home studio, this guide will help you get that polished, dreamy lo-fi sound you're after. Just go to www.lofimusicacademy.com. Until next time, keep creating those laid-back vibes, and don't forget to subscribe for more lo-fi tips and tricks.